So today what I wanted to do was give a big shout out to Ryan Ma Scouting. He is a U.S. regional scout at Dobber Prospects, and he posts NHL prospect analytics cards. He is from Toronto, Ontario, and the reason we are talking about him today is because earlier in the week, we had ourselves 2025-2026 NHL Prospect Analytics cards. And Ryan did all of us fans the pretty big favor of tweeting some of these out. 44 different player requests, and he went out there and posted a whole bunch of them. For example, take a look at Vaclav Nestrasil, a Chicago Blackhawks prospect who was given a Prospect League grade of B+. Now, there are a number of posts over here. A ton of prospects, some amazing, others not so much, that are discussed. And as a result, I wanted to take a look at some of the prospects from one particular NHL team, courtesy of Ryan Ma and his analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going over to the Detroit Red Wings subreddit and talking about how Stevie Y has done some pretty good work. Because Ryan went out there and posted prospect analytics cards of Wings prospects Carter Bear, Max Plante, Eddie Genborg, and Brent Solomon, with his short Twitter blurbs in the body of the post. Now, here's the thing. These 4 names are included in this Reddit post, but there actually was another guy that Ryan Ma posted about, Jesse Kiiskinen, out of the Finnish Liga, who also was given a pretty good rating you can see over here. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about 5 Detroit Red Wings prospects and where they rank via Ryan Ma's prospect analytics cards. Big shout out over to Ryan one more time. Go out there and support his work on Dobber. But starting things out, this is the first player card that was posted about on the post here. Max Plante out of the NCAA. Obviously, he is given an A+ rating, and it shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody. Max Plante is the guy that we've been making a bunch of videos about because he's one of the top scorers in the NCAA. He is a 19-year-old Detroit Red Wings second-round pick from a year ago that currently has 28 points in 18 University of Minnesota Duluth games. If you head over to the NCAA in its entirety, you will see that Max Plante and his brother Zam Plante are some of the top point scorers in the entire league. If Max had played the same amount of games as William Horkoff, he probably would have overtaken him by now. There is a 4-way tie, after all, for number 1 in the nation in points. So to see a 19-year-old go out there and establish such a high level of offensive productivity, hey, it's not surprising to me that he's given an A+ rating. The write-up from Ryan goes out there and says this, that it's been a monster draft +2 year for him, averaging 20 minutes a game for Minnesota Duluth. The 2024 second-round pick is the model's 5th-ranked U22 forward in the NCAA so far this season. The skilled playmaker has been an extremely well-rounded, impactful player. Now, there was another Red Wings prospect to talk about here in this post as well, as Carter Bear was given an A rating. Not the A+ like Max Plante has, but an A. Turns out Carter Bear does suffer a little bit in terms of his, seems like that's position play, as well as his transitions, excuse me, my goodness. And Carter Bear, if you just wanted the update on him point production-wise, 19 years old, playing for the Everett Silvertips in the dub. He's got 27 points in 23 games played, on pace for about 73 over 62 games, so this production is a lot less than what he had last year as a draft eligible. But you still have to fill in the blanks to some of the context here. Carter Bear did have an injury, he was coming back, and that was one of the big reasons why his development was slowed down a little bit. But hey, he's a Red Wings guy, he was a top 15 pick, and Ryan Ma goes out there and says that Bear was getting legitimate shouts as a top 5 pick last year before his campaign was cut short by a brutal Achilles injury. The Red Wings drafted him 13th, confident the injury wouldn't hamper his development, and it looks like their faith in him has paid off. Now, shifting gears from the Canadian junior scene to the American junior scene, let's talk about Brent Solomon, a guy that we haven't actually made any videos about, with the exception of the video when he literally got drafted by the Wings earlier this year. 4th round pick, 109th overall, 2025 draft. Brent Solomon was a guy who produced a lot of points last year in high school. He played for Champlain Park High, getting 56 points in 28 games played, and Team Twin Cities Orthopedics, getting 38 points in 21 games over there. That's all he had, not to mention an 8-game USHL stint, but that was towards the end of the year. Brent Solomon had so much production as a high schooler in the USA that it's easy to see why he went under a lot of people's radars. But he was taken by Detroit, and now in the USHL, he's over a point per game. 26 points in 23 games played for the Sioux Falls Stampede. And Ryan Ma's prospect analytic card goes out there and says that Solomon is an A-plus prospect. Look at all those 95-plus ratings on his involvement score. Let's go out there and read what it says here. He has been setting the USHL on fire with Ethan Wittenbach's departure. The Red Wings' 4th round pick from 2025 is heavily involved on the ice, dominant in transition with a high shot volume. His support game and shooting efficiency could be improved, but there are some very promising early returns on this 4th round pick. So how about that, eh? Stevie Y going out there and legitimately getting value out of the 4th round just a mere months after the draft actually took place. I'd say that's a pretty big win. Now, speaking about wins, you can't have too many of them in a row here because the next prospect that was written about, Eddie Genborg out of the SHL, only has a B- grade on the prospect card ranking here. And honestly, I'm not too surprised when you just break it down analytically. Genborg is 18 years old. He's a winger. He was drafted by Detroit this most recent draft in the 2nd round, so a few rounds before Brent Solomon was taken. But Genborg this season has 15 points in 26 games played in the SHL. Honestly, it's a pretty good number, but obviously it's not as high as some of the other junior leagues that these other prospects are scoring in. And in Max Plante's case, he's scoring in the NCAA, which you can debate could be a pretty big feat in and of itself. Eddie Genborg, though, doesn't have the best advanced analytics past the point production, which makes sense in my mind since he is playing mostly against men. But Ryan's write-up does provide some context here. He's playing a real role on an SHL team at 19, and that's no small feat. He's the 8th-ranked U22 forward in the SHL this year, and ranked only behind Frondell and Eklund when compared to his draft class. And so context does matter, because if only some of the guys at the very top of the draft are ahead of Eddie Genborg, I'd say that's a pretty reasonable assessment for him in his game so far. A B- doesn't mean that he's never going to pan out. It just means that, hey, some of the other guys have exhibited absolute top-tier analytics and involvement percentages. Genborg has not, but he still is pretty good. Now, shifting gears over to the last prospect that I wanted to talk about, let's go out there and focus on Jesse Kiiskinen from Ryan Ma's Twitter himself, because this was posted a little bit later on after all of the other names were posted about. Take a look at this. Kiiskinen, acquired by the Red Wings from Nashville, has been quietly one of the best young players in Finland this year. He's the 3rd-ranked U22 player playing in the nation's top league, and while the Liga is not the SHL or KHL, he's playing a huge role for HBK at just 21 years old. And over here you can see that Kiiskinen, with his A- rating and the 18 points he has in 27 games, is a very good analytical player for the Hämeenlinna team. He was a point-per-game player last year for HBK. Might I remind you, he was initially taken by Nashville and sent over to Detroit in... what was the trade that sent him over to the Wings? Let's just review that one more time here. Andrew Gibson. The Jake Wallman trade. Okay, that's quite interesting. It was a 3-way trade. So, Jesse Kiiskinen probably providing some good value here. I'd say a lot of Wings fans are still salty about the Jake Wallman thing, but hey, we'll never know what happens at the end of the day. This prospect, though, looks like a pretty good consolation prize. Kiiskinen has been heavily involved. He's been given minutes. He's one of the more utilized players in the league, and at 20 years old, it provides some pretty good projection for his future. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about each of these Red Wings prospects, from Carter Bear to Max Plante, Brent Solomon, Jesse Kiiskinen, Eddie Genborg, and others? What are your thoughts on how they've performed so far for the Wings, and where do you see them going in the future? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this. Rolls 99. Big shout out to Ryan Moss Scouting one more time for getting this entire conversation started. And bye.